Think back to your first ever creative project. I'm not talking about a project for school. I mean the first time you ever tried to write an original story. The first time you tried to write your own music. Or even that time you tried to make your own game. Back when you were filled with so much creativity and passion, you believed that it could only succeed because of how much heart and soul you poured into it. No one was allowed to critique it or even give any kind of recommendation about how to change it so it would be a little bit more palatable to your hypothetical audience. You were an auteur, the creator of an original work, whose original work was a reflection of who you are as a person. Your DNA is in that work more than anything else. You made sure that even if your work wasn't good and stood the test of time, it would be remembered by you because of just how much effort you put into making it unique and attuned to your interests, ideals, and general being as a person. Today we'll be talking about one specific auteur, one Hideki Kamiya, founder of Platinum Games, and how their most well-known title is such because of just how much of Kamiya was put into it. Hideki Kamiya joined Capcom in 1994 as a game designer and first directed Resident Evil 2, which was followed up by the original version of Resident Evil 4 that became the original Devil May Cry. His next game that he directed was Beautiful Joe, followed by Okami, both of which were developed under the development team Clover Studios. However, due to failing sales for those games as well as the notoriously difficult God Hand, Capcom closed the studio down and much of the team were without jobs. Some of them, Kamiya especially, went on to found the now popular action game-centric development studio Platinum Games in 2006. They released Mad World as their first game, and while it was an impressive first step, they wouldn't find their stride until the next game that they developed on their own and not with the help of a secondary third party. That game was Kamiya's next opportunity to sit in the director's chair, and it's his biggest, proudest pet project. That game is Bayonetta. Now when I say that Bayonetta is a pet project of a game, I mean that Hideki Kamiya made sure that bits and pieces of things that he liked were in there, for better or for worse. The most obvious example is Bayonetta herself. She was designed by the character designer Mari Shimazaki, with Kamiya's notes on designing a contemporary witch that was fashionable and was able to use 4 guns. Most prominent among those notes is that she must wear glasses. And there were some other notes that were somewhat less important, such as needing different proportions than other average women due to gameplay reasons, as her animations should be easily read by the player. As Kamiya was also a writer for the story, he also had a say in what kind of person Bayonetta was, and you can tell that he made what he believed was the perfect woman. Cocky, sure of herself, able to throw quips with great ease, sexual while also not being so overt that it can be read as putting out, and yet still a good person who will do the right thing if it just so happens to coincide with her current quest. The second and biggest source on the claim that Bayonetta is an auteur's pet project is in the gameplay. Hideki Kamiya has always had his chef's spoon in the pot of many games he's worked on, and the majority of those games, both before and after Bayonetta, are what are known colloquially as character action games, also called spectacle fighters or hack and slash games. With that fact, we can deduce that Bayonetta is much more special than any of his other action-based games beforehand. Kamiya has specifically stated that he wanted a character designed to be able to use 4 guns simultaneously, and that's exactly what he got. Not only can she strap 4 magic guns to all 4 limbs, but she can do the same with magic shotguns, magic bazookas, magic claws that are electric and fire flavored, and even magic laser guns. These aren't all the weapons available in the original Bayonetta, but it just goes to show just how much thought went into the design of her gameplay and how to make it so uniquely his own style. The final and most important thing that cements this as a Hideki Kamiya game first and foremost before a platinum game is just how much effort went into putting as many Easter eggs as possible, the majority of which are tailored to Kamiya's interests. Shooting a wall with your normal gunfire will reveal that Bayonetta shoots in a specific way, one that shows that she's carving either a heart or even a capital B. Her shadow is the shadow of the main demon she's forged a contract with, Madama Butterfly, who appears in her Wicked Weave attacks. Both chapters 8 and 14 feature gameplay shifts in the styles of Super Hang-On and Space Harrier respectively, with the first part of the stage in chapter 14 being more or less a shot-for-shot remake of the first level of Space Harrier. Not to mention that both of those stages feature controller inputs that must be made before the beginning of gameplay that plays actual tracks from those respective games, rather than remixed versions. There are dozens upon dozens of references to other games, mythology, and even contemporary media throughout, such as the weapon Pillow Talk being named after a similar weapon in Okami, the bazooka weapon Lieutenant Colonel Kilgore being named after the character of the same name in Apocalypse Now, and the character Jean's version of Pillow Talk being named Bloody Moon, combined with her special Umbran uniform costume, making a multi-layered reference to the anime Cutie Honey. All these references, all these Easter eggs, none of them are by accident. These are all deliberate. They're deliberate because director Hideki Kamiya wanted this game to have his fingerprints all over, and everything found within it is proof of that. Now, this isn't to say that Bayonetta isn't without problems. No game is truly perfect, and there are some flaws found within. For one, the gameplay shifts into Super Hang-On and Space Harrier for their respective stages are really jarring, and go on for a bit too long, and feel more like gimmicks rather than Easter eggs. There's some really terrible quick time events that instantly kill you if you don't react quickly enough, and the game's difficulty is all over the place, with my personal least favorite stage being Tower to Truth, the penultimate chapter before the final boss and the epilogue. And as many people have pointed out, the story doesn't make a lick of sense until subsequent playthroughs where you know all the facts. Still, there's so much to see and do, it's a little easy to look past some of the more glaring problems with the game, at least some of them.
Don't fuck with a witch.
Despite the commercial and critical success of Bayonetta, no one really wanted to touch the idea of a potential sequel. Well, no one except the lovely people over at Nintendo, who years later helped release Bayonetta 2, what is widely claimed to be a much more balanced and consistently better adventure than the original game. But Kamiya was no longer a director on the game, having moved to being on the story writing team only. Still, you can see hints of his interests and quirks in the game, such as the final chapter beginning with a flying stage that can be converted into a Star Fox Arrowing stage with the right prerequisites. There's still so much to say about Bayonetta as a series and as a character, but I could talk for hours and we've already discussed the point of this video. Bayonetta was the dream project for Hideki Kamiya, and he made the original game the way he really, truly wanted. For better and for worse. I can only hope that you, the viewer, have a project that you are passionate about and can complete with the same kind of tenacity and dedication as Hideki Kamiya. This has been Rising Superstar, and I love you.